Welcome to the Enduro Method podcast. Enduro Method is an online strength and conditioning program built for those who ride by those who ride. We are professional coaches dedicated to building the best and most revolutionary off-the-bike training for dirt bikers around. We are offering a special discount for our podcast listeners. Use discount code EMPodcast22 for 50% off your first month. For more information, head to the description of this podcast where you can find the discount code and a link for more information and to sign up.
Welcome to the Enduro Method podcast. Josh here with Dane.
Yo.
And today we're going to talk about if you only had the option to get one piece of cardio equipment, what we would choose and why. So we're going to kind of talk about 5 main pieces and then kind of mention a bunch of other options as well. But the main one we're going to focus on would be Concept 2 rower, Concept 2 ski erg, Concept 2 bike erg, and then the air assault bike or rogue echo bike. So a flywheel bike where your arms and your feet move like an Airdyne also would work. The other options would be running, road cycling, mountain biking, and trail running.
Treadmill.
Treadmill. Yeah.
What about elliptical?
I think elliptical is kind of a waste of time, personally.
We're just going to veto that one right off the get-go.
Well,
Not even worth talking about?
I don't know.
I'll straight up say it's not even worth talking about.
Yeah,
it doesn't really mimic any real-life scenario besides being on an elliptical.
I think part of the low impact could be a benefit, but it's such an awkward piece of machinery, and I don't know. The benefits are hard to count. And so, yeah. So, not much on the elliptical.
So, there's that one.
First one, Concept 2 rower. What do you think on the rower? Just general speaking at first.
Oh, yeah. I mean, rower's up there. I would say one of my top choices for sure. Really great total body exercise. I don't know. It's lower and upper. I mean, obviously, if you're doing the proper row stroke, it's definitely powered by the legs, but it's not solely legs. What are your thoughts on it?
I love the rower. I think it's a great total body exercise. Leg push, think upper body back, and arm pull. So you get a lot of movement in there. It's great for posterior chain. It's great position for strengthening the back, for biking, for being in that kind of attack position. You do get a good leg push off the catch, which is really beneficial as well, just in some leg endurance. Overall, I think it's a great piece of equipment. The only downside I see with the rower is that you don't get any upper body pushing with it. And then the other thing to consider is that with the rower, you get a return stroke, so you get a work to rest ratio on that machine, and there's a couple other that are like that. And so for doing really short, intense work, the rower is not always the best option. You need to be really strong individually to be able to get, if you're doing really short stuff like 20-second sprints on a rower, it can be difficult to get that out of that unless you're maybe a really good rower, you got good technique, and you're just pretty strong overall. So that's kind of the only downside I see, but for the most part, fantastic piece of equipment.
So are we just going over pros and cons of each?
Yeah, to start, and then we'll come back and give our personal favorites.
Like if you had to pick one?
Yeah. Concept 2 ski erg.
Well, we have 3 at the gym, and I feel like they're the last ones picked. It's like the last kid picked for the team. It's like the dreaded ski erg.
Right.
I guess I'll ski. You're like the last pick, so you get the ski erg. Anyways, But I like it. I mean, it's, I like it as far as like the positions that it puts you in, as far as like just getting that, the hinge, and then just kind of like your lats. I mean, it just really, I mean, I remember when we got it and you were like, this mimics a lot of like what it feels like standing up on your dirt bike on a hill.
Yeah. On climbs.
So, like, I remember that. And that's pretty accurate. Like, I mean, your lats are there on that. I like how they're all total body, let's be honest, pretty much. I guess not all. But anyways, I just like that because it's, easy to translate to that riding element of. I mean, literally, I've been so many on the bike being like, oh my god, my arms are gonna fall off like in my armpit area.
Yeah.
Because I'm just constantly trying to pull myself up or whatever, and that you can hit that on the ski erg. So that's what I like about the ski erg, and they're just hard. Like, talk about mental training. Put a ski erg in there and do that for half hour or hour. I guess you would do it for an hour. I have yet to venture down that.
Yeah, I feel similarly. I think, again, ski erg's a great piece of equipment. Anterior core, so front side core, big hit there. A lot of tricep and lat, like Dane was saying. So where I felt the most transfer from a strength endurance standpoint was long climbs, or like really technical uphill stuff where you're trying to pull yourself up on the seat, or if you're standing and keep your hips toward the bars. Really beneficial there. Teaches proper hinge mechanics. There's definitely some legs still involved that catch position at the bottom. You got to stand back up. So, legs are working. One thing I've done that I thought was actually kind of cool is I wore a weight vest on the ski erg, and you get a little bit of that weight to help you on the downstroke, but coming up out of that was a lot more work for the back and glutes and hamstrings. And so that would be a way to focus more on posterior chain a little bit with the ski erg as with the anterior when you're pulling. But overall, same thing. Great piece of equipment, and you can also get creative with your feet on that, and I don't know, it's kind of cool. So I think that's a great.
How do you get creative with your feet?
You can like put one foot on the platform, stagger stance, so one foot on the platform, one off, and every row stroke you hop side to side. So it adds quite a.
I'd like to see a video of that.
Yeah, we should do one. Anyways, that's really
Sorry,
good.
if you can hear our dogs walking around, they are here annoying us today.
All right, next one, we got the Concept 2 bike erg. So
I would relate this to like a spin bike too.
yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
So no arms, right? Mimics a road bike setup, handles, only legs going. The nice thing about this one is the fact that you're pedaling. So you don't have that rest return stroke, even like you would on a ski erg. The same rules apply for the ski erg with the short, really hard intervals that apply on the rower. You got to have pretty good arm strength, pretty good technique to be able to.
I feel like you could get a lot. I don't know. I mean, you get some of that rest, but when you sprinting on that thing is like no joke.
Yeah, but we've also done it enough to where you have a decent technique on it. If you watch somebody who's never really been on it or is pretty new to lifting or getting strong in general, it's really hard for them to put a lot of power into those things.
Yeah, I guess you could put a lot of power into the bike and not have a whole lot of experience.
Yeah, exactly. You can sit almost anybody on a bike, set the damper setting to somewhere where they can get
adjust the resistance is what he's talking about.
Maximum intensity with very little practice. So bike erg
or spin bike,
pretty great. We'll get to what we choose. I think it's a great addition. It's hard to say if it would be my first choice, just because there's no arms. But anything else?
That's why you sign up for Enduro Method and you do a total body workout.
There you go.
or you do any workout that incorporates your arms.
Yeah. But all in all, great piece. You can be on it for a long time.
Hey, question. We should have done this in the beginning. What are you utilizing these tools for? Just straight up cardio, like endurance, like sustained days?
Well, that's the thing. You can use most of these for a little bit of everything.
I know. Never mind. I was talking more like if I were to pick it for a workout or pick it for.
Yeah, probably aerobic work for the most part. So longer efforts, building zone 2, aerobic base, threshold, lactate threshold, VO2 max work. Great addition to any type of CrossFit mixed modal training.
So this would be like your single mode
training. Yep. It could be single mode stuff. It could be mixed in with some weight work, in like a WOD, right? Where you're doing cardio and
We're
weights.
just talking about like if you were to buy one thing, what's like the best?
What's your overall and why? Yeah. So those are kind of the 3 Concept 2 pieces of cardio equipment. The next one would be an aerosol bike or Rogue Echo bike. So this is where you are sitting on it, you're pedaling, and your arms are moving. So you have handles up in front of you that are push-pull as you're continually pedaling forward on the bike. Mm-hmm. I would say this one's the most hated in the gym, typically.
At our gym, yeah.
At our gym. Nobody wants to use these anymore.
We got the Concept 2 bikes, and then now no one ever touches the assault bikes besides us.
But extraordinary piece of equipment. Same thing. You can get almost anybody on there. Go really hard. Very small learning curve. You can put out a lot of intensity for short intervals. You can go at a slower pace for a longer interval. There's no way to really adjust resistance. They just, because it's a fan bike in the front, the harder you go, the more resistance you get. So very scalable. Yeah, this is a good one. And because of the nature of it, where you're pushing and pulling with the upper body and you're pedaling with the lower body, you're getting a huge amount of blood circulation. Oxygen's going throughout the entire body the entire time. Whereas I think on a rower, you're probably pretty close to that. Ski erg, you're probably going to get more blood flow. Also, if you're working upper body.
I think the ski, the row, and the assault bike all have like blood distribution through the whole body. The bike erg is the only one where you're like, my legs are full of blood. My legs.
Right.
Where you're not necessarily like, oh my god, my arms hurt.
Well, yeah, but ski erg's a lot of upper body focus, like when you're really hammering, But you could make the case. Last one would be just running outside or on a treadmill. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's great if you can. If you can run, it's a great way to build it up.
Yeah. And if you're able to get one piece of cardio equipment and then you always have running as your second,
you're golden.
Yeah, you get a pretty good
no
little
excuses
arsenal. Running's fantastic. I think it's interesting for me because I haven't spent a lot of time running. I do more now probably than I have previously. But I've spent a lot of time on the rower, and I'm a much better rower than runner. Like if you were to compare a comparable time distance, I have like a pretty decent score on a rower and a pretty abysmal score running, which just means I need to spend more time doing it. But from an impact perspective, the rower is going to be a lot easier on the body. So, heavier folks or, people who don't spend a lot of time running, volume can quickly become an issue. Mm-hmm. So, something to keep in mind, you're not going to run into issues on ergs as much as you will just running. So knees, ankles, hips, all that stuff.
You should tell the story about your marathon consult where, or I guess I can tell it. So Josh consulted with Zach Bitter, who owns the 100-mile indoor track.
He did.
record.
I'm not sure if he does anymore, but at one point within the recent past, he had the 100-mile indoor track record. So 400 laps on an indoor track.
Which is disgusting.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's just a very elite runner, and he has developed some training plans. And in the development phase of our new hard enduro training plan, a little foreshadowing there, that's coming out soon. Stay tuned. You had consulted with him, and because you bought his program to be like, okay, well, the 4-hour time domains are equal.
For a 50K, yeah.
Okay, for a 50K. 4 hours?
4 plus.
4+ hours, which is comparable to a hard enduro race. And you were like, can I just use this same template and, road bike ski combination on it? And his answer was, you can actually increase the volume on those due to the nature of running being so much more impactful. Right. So running has to be less because of the impact it has on the body. So biking and cycling has to be way more.
Right.
I don't know if you have anything to add about that.
Well, it was fairly disheartening because it was already a shit ton of volume. And he's like, well, you could probably up it for, what it sounds like you're doing. But it was really cool. It was great to hear like all the training philosophies from what we do to cycling to running to whatever. It's all the same. Or I don't want to say the same. Very similar, right? The methodologies of how to increase speed over time apply. Mm-hmm. And so the idea that you can go in and do 30-second intervals for 10 minutes and then go out and do a hard enduro race at 4 hours just doesn't hold water. And anybody that's seen this previously, Brian McKenzie, he started CrossFit Endurance back in the day, and he was on a mission to prove that you could just do CrossFit and then go run marathons and be hyper successful. And on his own account, after a couple of years, he just realized that it doesn't work. I mean, there's all kinds of benefits to short, fast stuff, but at the end of the day, you have to put volume in to be able to sustain and perform for long duration. Like, you cannot do 5-minute workouts only. You can do them with long workouts or long training sessions. In addition to, but by themselves, they just don't hold up. So, yeah, it was cool. I think Zach's, and I don't want to misquote this, but I'm pretty sure he held like a 6-minute, 35-second mile for 11 hours.
Which is insane.
On an indoor track.
Yeah, I remember when I first heard him on Joe Rogan, and they talked about whatever pace he held for the 100 miles. It's disgusting, whatever it was.
Yeah.
Like, to even think of running 1 mile like that, let alone 100 for however long.
It's insane.
So running is great.
Running's great. The next one that would fall right in there would be trail running. Again, I think fantastic. The great things that come along with doing stuff indoors or with a monitor in front of you is you're able to be very, very deliberate and accurate in your pacing. The hard part about doing this stuff outside in the world is that terrain varies. And so it's much harder to be consistent with, if you're really trying to work like a zone 2, right? So a fairly easy pace. And the reasons for that would be to increase your mitochondrial density, to increase your uses of fat as energy, all those things. As intensity increases, your body starts to shift toward burning sugars as fuel. And so when you're outside, if you're going out on a trail run and you're gaining a lot of elevation, unless you're turning that into potentially a fast or slow walk up these hills, you're going to find that you're working out of the zone that you might be trying to work in. So again, the nice...
Can't there be benefit to that?
Absolutely. But if you're specifically trying to work that low zone, then getting out of that zone into a higher heart rate is not going to be much benefit. Because once you shift out of that low zone, it takes a lot of time for your body to come back down to it when you start going back to easy work.
What about all the people that just like go trail run and do that, and then they're good at trail running?
Well, you have to define what good is and who it is and how long they've been doing it and what their other training looks like. Because they might not just do trail running.
Don't push back.
All right, and that would be my same pushback for mountain biking. Fantastic. Great cross training. These aren't reasons not to do anything. It's not black and white. There's always gray. So mountain biking would be the same thing as trail running. You're going to be out, depending on what the trail is, the elevation, how good you are at mountain biking. Can you stay in a moderate to low intensity zone for the duration if that's what your program calls for? Or when you go out, is your heart rate spike right off the get-go, right off the truck? And then, depends where you live, all those things.
Okay, let me ask you this. So I want to use mountain biking to improve my fitness for dirt biking.
Very vague. Go on.
But I'm going to go ride, and yes, when I first go, it's going to be hard. My heart rate's going to be way higher than it probably needs to be. But over time, if I continue to ride that, won't it get lower? And then won't that in turn... I feel like that would... I guess I'm being super general. Like, the more specific you are, the more specific your training needs to be.
Yes.
I guess I'm answering my own question. But I do think that even, going out for a mountain bike ride... if you were to ride the same trail every Monday, first Monday you're in freaking zone 5 the whole time. And then by 3 months later, you might be pushing down to getting into that zone 2 because you've gotten to be a better rider and your body is capable, I guess.
Yes. Again, no pushback on using it as a tool to get more fit. And if you do the same thing over and over, you will get better at that specific thing that you're doing. You kind of hit the nail on the head with the specificity aspect, though, because the broader your base, the bigger the pyramid can be. And by taking pieces of that and working on them specifically, you can build each attribute faster, right? So if you were to take that hill that spikes your heart rate, gets you going, and you did intervals on that hill, you could increase your pace on that hill. Come back. If you did the long, slow stuff, you build a big aerobic base that then you can build a higher pyramid and more work on top of. This to me would be...
What about the other way around? So now let's flip it. Every time I go mountain biking, I just don't want to push hard, and I want to stay in zone 2 all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just thinking of individuals that are may just stay in zone 2, but they never... then they come to the gym because they're I don't have any power on the bike.
Totally. And I would say racing might not be your objective. Right?
And come to the gym.
Yeah, well, no. At some level, if you want to compete, then you need to push yourself in all
what if you
aspects.
just want to get better?
Then you're still pushing yourself. So staying in zone 2 entirely is not your best option.
Okay.
Last one we got would be a road cycle.
Oh, sorry.
Road bikes are great. Little bit of the same rules apply. Wind conditions, road conditions, terrain you're riding. So you're going to have some variance in there. Overall, it's probably easier to hold consistent pacing work for road than mountain bike or trail riding or running. The downside of a couple of these too is they're pretty expensive. So if you're just getting into road cycling, biking, road kit, and all that stuff is not cheap. Mountain bike, potentially the same. Running, much cheaper.
Right.
Shoes, good to go. Ergs, you're out about $1,000 roughly. And a solid bike is half that.
Mm-hmm.
So from a monetary perspective, I think there's some really good cardio options that are relatively reasonable and do a really good job, and without going big on bike and gear and all that stuff.
Yep.
So hopefully we didn't get off too much topic and tangents, but if you had to choose just one, let's say you always had running as an option, running and trail running. So that one is kind of in your pocket, but you're looking to get one piece of cardio equipment. You could go road bike, mountain bike, rower, skier, biker, or assault bike.
Well, I'm going to pick the mountain bike because that's going to be the most fun.
All right, let's take... We said those 5 earlier, so let's take the road bike and mountain bike
This
out.
is basically more of like if you're going to invest in...
An indoor piece of cardio equipment.
In a tool that you are going to use to train on. Not necessarily for funsies, like mountain biking. I would lump the mountain bike in the funsies category more so than the training category. That's why it'd be the top, because it's kind of goes both ways.
Right. And you do want your cardio to be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're at it for a while.
Yeah. So without that one?
Yeah. So you got rower, skier, biker, assault bike.
Those are kind of the only common ones, right?
And I mean, you could...
VersaClimber.
Yeah.
Which neither one of us have ever used, so maybe we should just scrap that one. But I would imagine it's probably pretty good.
It's spendy, too.
Really expensive. What about a stair stepper?
Get a box.
Right, yeah. Okay. So we'll go off those ergs, the equip mix. I mean, for the, I would add the assault bike. Just because I think it's like you can incorporate it into workouts, and yeah, it's hard because it's hard to sit on an assault bike for a really long time. But you could.
Done it.
You have, I know. I have not really. I think I did 30 minutes when you were doing those intervals. But you can.
Yeah.
I think one of our Enduro Method members spends a good chunk of his time on the assault bike. And I think that plays out. Like, I think that's good. I think, so also I think the assault bike versus the echo bike, for sure the echo bike is pretty relentless. Like, when you stop your feet, that thing stops. Like, there's no forward momentum whatsoever. So I'd say, like, the assault bike that was chain powered.
The actual Aerosol brand.
Yeah, the one that had the chain in it where you'd stop your feet. Or you'd, like, let go. If you were, like, pop your feet off, the bike with pedals will still go.
Right.
So there's, like, some momentum in that.
Yeah.
Whereas the Echo bike, there, you stop your feet and the bike goes, stops. So I would say assault bike. I love the rower, but I have a love-hate relationship with that thing because I guess this is, you can see into my mental here, but I have expectations on the rower from years of rowing. So it's harder mentally for me to not meet those expectations.
Yeah.
In your butt, I don't like what it does to your butt. It hurts so bad.
Yeah. It goes numb, then it goes back, then it goes numb again.
Yeah. I'd rather have, like, the assault bike.
So your number one pick would be assault bike.
Yeah.
What would be 2 and 3?
2 would be the rower. 3 would be the biker, just because of the popularity of it at our gym. 3rd would be the skier. I think they're all good, but I think the skier gets utilized the least.
Yeah. What do you feel like transfers well from dirt biking to assault bike?
Like just the cardiovascular hit and the mental grind of it. Just like what it does to your guts when you're doing the assault bike or when you're like trying to push your dirt bike up something. As far as riding your dirt bike, maybe I should just focus on skills. What about you?
That's a hard call. I think if I only had one, and I had running, I would go rower.
Why rower?
I think there's a tremendous amount of leg endurance and posterior chain endurance involved in the rower. I think with that, if you could add running to that, you're going to have your bases pretty well covered. Yeah, I spent a lot of time on the rower. You can definitely do short, fast stuff on it. You just, should be able to deadlift your body weight a couple times at least as a minimum to have the power to put it out. But it's a pretty overall good piece of equipment.
Mm-hmm.
I like the hunched over position you get to in the catch. You got to get your breathing in order, good breathing pattern. You can do long efforts on there. You can do short ones. I've seen a couple people advocating for changing the row stroke to use less legs in order to do more posterior chain to mimic riding more.
Really?
Yeah, I think it's a mistake. I think best case is to use the equipment as a professional rower would use the equipment.
Mm-hmm.
And then I don't think there's too much.
What would you do, pull early?
Yeah, you almost leave your legs locked. You have a really short leg and then a real big reach. So you use a lot more hinge. I see the purpose, but to me it's almost too sport specific. It's like do your riding and then do your cardio, get the overlap. But by handicapping the cardio from a technique perspective, I don't know. I could be wrong on this, but that's just my own opinion. Second would be assault bike, I think, just because of the full body aspect of it. There's no break, like Dane was saying. It's relentless. Push-pull with the upper body constantly, legs are pushing. Yeah, it's great. And then third would be ski erg, and then bike erg from there.
Why'd you put bike erg last? Or a bike, spin bike? Last.
It's only legs. I mean, being on them quite a bit, like I like that you have to support yourself. Actually, my arms get tired holding myself up on that. But I would use that one in conjunction with a rower or something. Because again, if you can't run, that might change your perspective on all this a little bit. Maybe the rower, that catch position's too much knee flexion, and or you got low back issues, and so a bike is a better option, right? None of this is
add with the row, you're working your grip to holding on to that thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not major, but
no, it adds up though.
You're holding on to that.
Yeah. Yeah, I've got pumped out on the rower before.
Yeah.
So, and then from there, I think, again, it just comes down to what you're trying to accomplish. Because, for instance, we got some long days coming up in our 8-week hard enduro training plan. And I did some long days last year going up to Grinding Stone and then got hurt and didn't even get to see how that worked out. But I was doing some 3-hour plus sessions on all these ergs on the weekend, and it was not that enjoyable.
You mixed in step ups and burpees and all
yeah,
that.
but at times I was on each one for 40 minutes by like 3 rounds to get to the time. And so that's where, like, a mountain bike, being able to be outside, not necessarily doing the same thing, or maybe it's a loop, but it's a big loop, so you're doing a couple or something that's way more enjoyable. Right, like if the time
domain is 4 hours, you're way better off going on a mountain bike ride.
Yeah, or a hike plus jog or whatever.
Yeah.
So as the requirements, let's say, of what you're trying to accomplish extend out, going to these things that are a little bit more variable probably don't have as much of a downside. In fact, it might even be a wash, right? Because the great part about a mountain bike ride, let's say as an example, is that it mimics terrain that you might be on in a hard enduro race more, right? You got some nasty uphills, you got some recovery sessions downhill.
What you're doing with your eyes and kind of body position is
Absolutely.
very similar.
Balance, watching the trail, trying to avoid objects, all that stuff. So again, it's more what you are trying to do. But just to clarify, and we'll touch more on this when we do talk about our 8-week hard enduro training plan, but if you are trying to specifically, let's say, work on hard, short, or fast intervals, so build up your VO2 max, just as an example, it's not that any of these options are wrong. There's just better ones. And the reason for that is because you have to put out at an intensity that mimics VO2 max intensity. And so if you're doing a 2-minute, let's say a 2-minute interval of VO2 max pacing, and then a 2-minute rest recovery period, and you're doing, 8 or 10 rounds of that 2-minute work period has to be at an intensity that mimics your VO2 max intensity. Because if it's not, then you're not training VO2 max. It's that simple. And so you need a piece of equipment that you can mimic that on. So if you're trying to do VO2 max intervals on a trail, and your 2-minute rest recovery period is up and you're on a downhill, you can't mimic the intensity of VO2 max training. And maybe that downhill is 10 minutes out, and then you get to a flat spot and you still can barely mimic the intensity. So that's why that isn't a great option. Whereas a flywheel bike or rower or any of those options, you can immediately get back to the intensity and sustain it almost exactly when done correctly, very easily. So that's why it makes it great option. And you get immediate feedback with the screen in front of you. You know if you're slowing down, you pair that up potentially with a heart rate monitor, chest strap, and you got a lot of info to use. So, I don't know. Anything else you want to touch on this?
Don't think so.
So there you have it. Dane's pick would be a assault bike.
Air bike, yeah.
Air bike.
Airdyne,
assault bike, road gecko bike. Mine would be Concept 2 rower. There's a bunch of other row options out there too that mimic the rower. We just have the Concept 2 stuff, so that's what we use the most. And yeah.
Yeah, so if you're listening to this and you need a Christmas present, there you go.
Yeah.
Hope that helps. Send this to your significant other.
Yeah.
Be like, sorry, I need this piece of equipment.
And if you were listening to this and interested in an 8-week build and taper plan for a hard enduro race, stay tuned. Keep checking our stuff. We'll be putting it out soon.
Make sure to follow us on Instagram.
Yeah.
And subscribe to our newsletters. You can do that through our Instagram channel and then at enduromethod.com.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for listening.
All right. Bye.
We'll catch you next time.